Good morning, people. At least it's morning here right now as I film this luscious greenery here in the House of Prayer. I haven't done this for some time, and I noticed I was a little rusty here on my harmonica, and it looks like I'm going to have to practice my harmonica more. And, I need to do more of my House of Prayer presentations, I think. It's just that I've been so busy with my domestics and whatnot. But of course, there are no excuses, for failing to pray. And not that I don't pray at home and that I don't pray in other places, but this is one of the best places I find for me to pray. It's quiet, it's solitary, my thoughts are not broken, and it's peaceful. I'm, in God's creation. I was just on my way to the store and thought I'd stop off here, and I had passed the RCMP station, and I got to thinking, the RCMP station is just right on the edge here of the woods where I pray, and I'm sure that RCMP officers really have a hard time doing their job sometimes, their job is to maintain law and order, and there are so many lawless people in the world that, it is necessary for us to have some sort of policing system because there are so many lawless people in the world. And I thought I would pray for them, and I have. But I also realize, I'm praying that they'll be content with their wages, just as John the Baptist told the police of his day and age to be content with their wages. It's really, I think, a very grave matter when people elect to police a community. So much careful judgment has to be implemented when they're doing their work, and it's really important not to oppress, but at the same time it's important to uphold the law and to keep the peace. And this is not such an easy thing when others are not being all that peaceful, and when others are being lawless. And the good thing is that the Holy Bible gives us a good standard to live by, and so that we are not lawless people, and that we uphold the law. Sadly, many of the laws today are not biblical laws. They are godless laws, and this puts police officers, I think, in very compromising situations where, they're almost forced, in a way, to uphold laws that are not even decent or moral. And I feel for them. I really do. I really feel for them. I got to reflecting on how one young officer knocked on my door, and I gave him a bit of a hard time, because it was a question of child discipline, and I had sent my child off to her bedroom where she threw a temper tantrum, and somebody had complained. At 10:30 in the morning, I get a police officer knocking on my door. He wants to see my child. I was offended. I was offended, and I kind of stood on my constitutional rights. The chief told me, I actually complained about this. The chief told me that I was fortunate. Well, actually, I think he said lucky. Personally, I don't believe in luck. I believe that fortune exists, and fortune and luck, I believe, are two different things, but I digress. But the chief said, you're lucky he didn't charge you for obstructing justice. There was no injustice taking place, so it'd be pretty hard for me to be obstructing justice when, no wrong was being committed. But I suppose it's the police officer that has to be the judge of that. My 4-year-old did walk out. It was kind of a very compromising situation. My pregnant wife was in the washroom at the time, and it just wasn't a very good time for him to come into my apartment. So I told him, no, you can't come in. And of course that led to things. I think he really, in a way, I really feel for the young man because, I realize he was trying to do his job, but this is where, it got pushed to the razor's edge. I will see fit how I discipline my children, and, I'm very sorry that someone heard my daughter's plaintive cries out the bedroom window and was screaming and throwing her, actually I don't even think she was 4, she was 2, her 2-year-old temper tantrum. Yeah, I think she was around 2 at that time. Well, she might have been a little bit younger, but I don't think she was 4. But the point of the matter is how do they know if you're abusing your child, And he threatened to call child welfare services or one of these places, where the government get involved in your life and, take your children and things like that. That was hardly necessary. But what disturbed me the most about this young man was that he actually believed that Canadian citizens had no rights prior to the Constitution. And the Constitution, the Canadian Constitution, I forgot the exact date, but it was not ratified. I think it was like 1986, 89, somewhere in there. Maybe it drug out to 1993. I can't remember, but the Constitution, or what we call the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, actually culminated in the loss of more rights and privileges for Canadians in general than the BNA Act. And I don't know who educated this young police officer, but it's very frightening if they're getting this sort of education that they honestly believe Canadians had no rights prior to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's entirely erroneous. Under the BNA Act, we had a good many rights and freedoms. And we don't have those anymore. For example, the right to private ownership of property. We don't have that anymore. There are, I'm not going to turn this into a political lecture or anything, but I think that Canadians need to realize a few things. And, at least the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms does still, to some degree, protect our right to privacy. And, I really, unless he could produce some reasonable cause for him to go into my apartment, I was not going to I was not going to consent under those circumstances with my pregnant wife in the washroom not knowing what's going on. And, no, it was a really awkward sort of moment at the time. So, she could have stepped out of the washroom after a shower in her birthday suit or something. I didn't want that. But that aside, they must really have a difficult job sometimes. And so the best thing we should do is pray for them, as we should pray for our leaders. I wanted to touch on something here that I saw on Facebook here. Somebody's really criticizing Christianity per se, with all the using a picture of all these engines of torture, implements of torture that the Roman Catholic Church was notorious for using. I'm going to say it. Friend, the Roman Catholic Church has very little to do with Christ. Okay? What the Roman Catholic Church does, it's just another political institution furnishing people with a false religion and using the Christian faith as a means to gain political and clout. It's a war engine. It's not. It has so little to do with Christ that you cannot, say things like, where would Christianity be without these implements of torture? I think Christianity would have flourished and prospered without these implements of torture. These implements of torture were designed by Romans originally, And that's what the Roman Catholic Church is all about, establishing Rome. And Rome has little to do with Christ, except that they crucified him. you know, um, so I thought that was a little bit of a crass statement to make. Where would Christianity be without these? Christianity would have been probably light years ahead without all the oppression that it has suffered under the hands of Rome. And likewise, I would say the same thing for Protestants. These protesting daughters of the great whore are no better. See, being a Christian is not about being a Protestant or about being a Catholic. Okay, that's why there's so much bloodshed. That's why there was so much conflict, for example, in Ireland in the 1970s, and well, not just the 1970s, throughout history, and it's still going on today to some extent, but it's tamed down. Thank God. God is so good. I think He's answered so many prayers concerning the conflict in Ireland between Protestants and Catholics. I know it's not all snuffed out, but a good deal of it has died down. Thank God. Because this is not Christianity is not about being Protestant or Catholic. It's real, true Christianity is all about Christ and living Christ-like. And where do we see, Christ-like living among people who thump themselves on the chest and think themselves something because they're Protestant or Catholic? I don't see any indications of any, Christ-likeness in people who take that approach. So I think that this is something to bear in mind. Actual Christian faith is relatively rare. People living, in a Christ-like manner, it's pretty rare. I consider myself, to some extent, a disciple of Christ, but I still have a long way to go. Nonetheless, I have been, exercising discipline. This is where we get that word, by the way, disciple. It means, like, discipline comes from the word disciple, and so I try to discipline myself with God's help and by His mercy and grace, to live a Christ-like lifestyle. And it's not easy, people. It's not easy, and nobody said it would be easy. And those who actually do elect to live that sort of lifestyle are seriously persecuted, seriously spit upon and shunned. Okay, just because you go to church, that don't make you a Christian. Just because you've agreed to some doctrine, that doesn't make you a Christian. And okay, one more final point before I shut her down here. Doctrine manifests in ideology, in psychology, philosophy, theology, all sorts of things. But doctrine doesn't get you saved. Okay? Doctrine will not save you in the blessed name of Jesus. Okay? I want to make this very clear. Doctrine is what makes doctrine distinguishable from ideologies and belief systems is that it involves indoctrination. And sadly, society is being indoctrinated through the media, through television, through all sorts of information, the internet, whatever have you, to believe a whole pile of lies, a whole pile of delusion. And mainstream religion, for example, is just rife with all this kind of false indoctrination. For example, the indoctrination of Trinity, which declares that God is three separate people. God is not three separate people, folks. In this respect, the Muslims are dead on right. They are correct. God is one, and God is one in every way. And He is not three separate people. I'm sorry, but the person of God is one, and the Spirit of God is one, and I can go on, but God is one in every way. But, you see, this is what indoctrination does. It divides. And the Roman, this whole Roman influx of indoctrination is really, all based upon an old Roman motto. I used to know it in Latin. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it means precisely this: divide and conquer. Okay, and so this is what's going on. We've got people now, say we've got race wars going on. Oh, it's a black, it's a white, it's a green, purple, blue, yellow issue. Oh, it's the homosexual issue, it's a lesbian issue, it's gay rights issues, it's division, people. It's all division, divide and conquer. This is all done by for a purpose, and the purpose is distraction. Okay, it's distraction, and this is one of Rome's oldest ploys in conquering people. Because if you can keep people divided against each other, if you can keep the people at each other's throats, they're easy to conquer, because they have no unity. They can't rise up together and take a stand against their oppression. No. Okay, they're too busy all blaming each other. They're too busy at each other's throats. And this is how Rome conquered so many nations in the past. And this is how Rome, quote unquote, conquered so-called Christianity. I say so-called Christianity because if you study history, you'll find that a good many people fled to the Carpathian Mountains and to areas all throughout Europe, escaping the oppression of Rome. And so, and they did not believe that the Roman Church in any way emulated Christianity. But in the world's view, this is what Christianity is all about. And the world is wrong. The world is dead wrong. And they're divided, and they're trying to blame all the troubles, on race, on culture, on politicians, and you name it, educational systems, anything, blame it on anything but the real cause. And there is a real enemy out there sowing the seeds of discord among those who would actually do well and in the service of God. And so this is really a very upsetting thing. It's been going on for eons. Where would Christianity be without the devices and implements of torture? Well, I think that Christianity would be a lot better off without them, yes. And I think that Christ was a perfect man and never did anything wrong. Not one thing did he do wrong. And so if we're going to look at the foundation of Christianity being Christ himself, I would say that, Christianity would have done very well without the oppression and implements of torture that were brought forth by the Roman Catholic Church. That said, I've probably gone over my time. I'm so grateful that YouTube has given me a little extra time to present my videos. I only had 15 minutes at one point, and now they're giving me more. God bless you for listening to this, and please feel free to leave any comments that you might have. This is Edward King signing off in the House of Prayer. God bless you. Have a great day.